over the men in the middle and 7 minutes over the group containing Lance Armstrong. And I think most of the bike riders in today's race would prefer to be there right now.
Yes, well, I can't swim, so I certainly wouldn't be able to do very well in that race. But there they come down the rapids, while high above, we're going to see the passage of the Tour de France. And this is the peloton now, crossing over the Whitewater Rapids, as they will now be entering the town shortly for the climb. This is the chase group, and they don't look, Paul, as though they've got much fight in here.
Well, somebody has.
No, Stuart O'Grady is gone.
I can't believe it.
I don't know what's going on here today. He's inspired.
Unbelievable. Stuart O'Grady, the sprinter of the Tour de France, third overall in the green jersey points competition, has gone out on his own. But you know, this is not an attack to try and win the stage. This is just to ride the climb as comfortably as he can. But he is in an unbelievable day today, one that he will remember for a long time to come. Because for a sprinter to ride at the front on a mountain stage, that's a big thing.
It is, but I'm amazed he's staying away at this stage. We know he wants the green jersey points at the line, but this is something he's never been able to do before. But he's ready, maybe right today, because he's taken advantage of the in-battle in-house between the yellow and Beloki. Once those riders come to this mountain, they will push on all of the way. There's no question of that. But you've got to take your hat off to a man who's trying to get points on the mountain stage. And they're not as high, of course, as a points on the flat stages.
It's a tough climb, this, at 17.5 kilometers. The summit, 1,970 meters, 6,500 feet above sea level. The average gradient, well, just inside 7%. But you know what? The bottom part is the worst part of this climb, because I think the first 10 kilometers are probably around about 10% in places.
Good crowd all of the way up here. Laurent Jalabert sitting at the back for the moment. Miguel Martinez is setting the pace. Iban Mayo, I can't believe, will not want to chase down Stuart O'Grady, but maybe he's tired. This rider is blazing the trail and doing it so well at the moment. The gaps have gone to question marks now on Stuart O'Grady, but it's 5:17 to Laurent Jalabert, 7 minutes 16 to Lance Armstrong. A very, very interesting time gap is that. Looking closely here, Jalabert, Paul, yeah.
Had a good day in the saddle today, because he didn't expect to do quite this well. He thought he might get some points at the top of the first climb of the day, the Col du Galibier, but he will be exceptionally happy with getting himself second place over the top of the Col de la Madeleine. And right now, well, basically he's just riding a tempo to survive, because he knows that fairly shortly he will see the yellow jersey of Lance Armstrong come forward, because it's the same scenario he saw when he attacked on 2 big days in the Pyrenees.
Same town of Mâcon now for Stuart O'Grady, still ahead of the rest of them. And riding very, very solid. He must have done a great climb on the Col de la Madeleine. He must have felt good halfway up, because he was dropped by the group and he came almost up to them on the climb, just had to finish it off on the way down. So here's a man feeling good today.
Well, looking down on this group here, Race Radio just crackling the name of Robbie Hunter. Robbie Hunter just going off the back of this group as we start the first few kilometers of the ascent towards La Plagne. Hunter was in the early breakaway as well with the other sprinters, Fanini and Stuart O'Grady, who is in second place on the road at the moment. He's been caught by the yellow jersey group of Lance Armstrong, and now he's just popping out of the back.
Armstrong still under no pressure. Don't forget, he's climbed this hill twice in training already, when he was out wrecking the course. And now he's going to remember every bend. That's why he does it. Ramondus Rumzas so far has shown him he is brilliant at following wheels. We haven't yet seen him attack. And he's in the same position he's been in every day, sitting off the shoulder of Armstrong.
So the Frenchman now taking up the pacemaking in the group behind Stuart O'Grady, who's second on the road at the moment. He's 5 minutes and 5 seconds behind the lone leader. And it looks as if Axel Merckx has taken off in the attack, the big Longines figure of the man who in the past has won a stage in the Giro d'Italia and has been the national champion. But that, in fact, is in response to the attack from Iban Mayo there in the orange jersey of Euskaltel-Euskadi. Now, he has got himself a pretty tough ride to go for if he wants to try and pull back Michael Bogard, because he's currently over 5 minutes in arrears.
Well, I feel already that the main field are not going to catch the leader, although you don't know how hard they're going to ride. The crosswind indicated by the British flag.
Stuart O'Grady there getting caught and passed by Iban Mayo, and the Euskaltel-Euskadi rider off in lone pursuit of the man who's led this race for an awful long time. Michael Bogert is the man at the front of the bike race at the moment. Stuart O'Grady, I think, just comfortably riding his own tempo, and he won't be too worried about trying to lift it right now. He'll just make sure that he doesn't lose too much time before the summit of this climb. This is a long, brave effort here by the man from Euskaltel-Euskadi, the Basque rider, Iban Mayo, but I think he's left himself much too much to do to try and catch Michael Bogert at the front of the bike race. Although Bogert has been on his own for an awful long time, he needs to pull back 5 minutes in the next 10 miles of riding. It's going to be very difficult, but you never know how the body's going to react. And look at this.
Oh dear.
He's suffering right now, but I don't think he's going to crack, because he will have dosed his effort over the last 100 kilometers.
Well, this is a marvelous picture of a man now riding to hopefully victory on La Plagne, but he's going to have to hold this rhythm yet for an awful long way.
You can see now the sweat appearing on this man. The sweat, when you come to these mountains, is absolutely unbelievable, because it doesn't just appear on your brow. Your arms start to pour with liquid, especially on these climbs, and especially when you go at the slightly slower speeds. And he will do what he can to try and keep that tempo riding just for the moment. On the front end of the main field, it seems to be that Lance Armstrong is very much isolated as we rejoin Jaja. Experience telling here. He knows he's not going to win the stage today. He knows he's going to get caught by the jersey of Lance Armstrong in a short while, so he's just going to ride and try and conserve as much energy as possible, because he knows he has to do battle again on the last big Alpine stage if he's going to make sure he wins his King of the Mountains jersey for the second year in succession. And I think it came as a big surprise to him last year when he did win that King of the Mountains competition, because I'm sure he never thought he would take that title at the Tour de France.
No, but he did, and there goes an attack there, and it looks like a Cofidis rider has gone. It should be Kovalev, I would think. No, it's a CSC. Sastre having a little go here. Now, this is an interesting move. The first of the attacks has come on the lower slopes. Now it's up to the Once boys to counter the move. If they do, Armstrong will go. Otherwise, he will allow this to happen.
Well, it is Carlos Sastre, and acceleration coming from Rubieri on the front there. He will look after Armstrong for as long as possible, and you see how difficult this is at the back. Ooh. Men are getting popped off all of the time. This is Mikel Pradera, the man who had the flat tire in the team time trial for the Team Once. This is Laurent Brochard at the back in the pink and white jersey of the Jean de la Tour team. Cedric Vasseur is number 49. He's going out to the back right now as well. All of these riders being put under severe pressure right now. That is Alexander Bocharov in the dark blue jersey with the blonde hair, the Russian rider on AG2R. And as soon as the pressure has gone on at the front end of the main field, you can see an awful lot of riders in difficulty. Andrei Kovalev going off the back too, so he's not having a great tour this year.
No, he isn't. He lies 16th overall at the moment.
Carlos Sastre trying once again. He's really trying to stir up the pacemaking at the front end of this machine, and he is trying to stir up the overall standings at the end of today's stage. He's 14th overall, 16.5 minutes behind, and what he's trying to do is provoke a huge split in this group. But I'm surprised to see there is no reaction coming from the Once team from Spain. Look at the armada of motor bicycles there, Phil. They're waiting for the shot of the big attack of the day to come.
Well, Sastre has gone, and really he can only be softening this up for something to happen with Tyler Hamilton. There's no reason other than that he's hoping to go all the way on his own. I think he's given far too much time now to the leaders to catch them. We're looking now at Dario Frigo cracking and dropping off the back as well now, as riders are beginning to find that these slopes of La Plagne really do bite. There we have Richard Veronk, struggled on the Madeleine, got back on the descent. I think now he's gone for the day. And the grimace now as the faces we see here of these riders on the final climb of the day. Tremendous ride indeed. By one or two of the, sorry, Paul, carry on.
A lot of guys getting hammered straight out to the back of this group right now, Phil. And it's all because of, look at this. Carlos Sastre has already caught Laurent Jalabert, and very shortly he will go by him and leave him behind. This is his teammate. Jalabert will dig deep right now because he's a seriously experienced professional bike rider, and what he will try and do right now is pace his teammate off the front. There is the yellow jersey group of Lance Armstrong, still surrounded by his teammates, but still we have not seen any movement to the front of this group coming from Roberto Heras. And this is the damage that is being done, though, at the rear end of the field. The next Cofidis rider to go out to the back will be David Moncoutier. He's the man who was hoping to be the best French rider in this year's Tour de France. He was hoping to ride well over the Alpine stages. As we look here at Sastre continuing to ride up through the field, he's catching Miguel Martinez there right now. And Jalabert decided to sit up now. This is a sight that Jalabert has had over the last few mountain stages of the Pyrenees. He's been able to look over his shoulder and see Lance Armstrong coming forward. And I wonder if Lance will say anything to him today. Up on the shoulder there of Armstrong, Raimundas Rumsas is coming forward right now. Santiago Botero is in the group as well. And once again, the decanting process is starting to happen. All of the best bike riders are coming to the top right now. And they're being led once again by US Postal Service. Heras, Phil, is sitting comfortably in that pack, playing the waiting game to see whether or not he's going to move forward.
It's going to be an interesting last few kilometers here. Here's the face now of Martinez suffering on this climb, this vicious, vicious climb. As he falls back now to the yellow jersey group. Still the pace being set here by US Postal. Rumsas still following the wheel of Armstrong. He finished right behind him on the climb of Les Deux Alpes yesterday. For him, it is his first Tour de France here.
Levi Leipheimer is in the group as well, Phil, still looking very comfortable. He won't make any move at all because it's his home teammate, Michael Boogerd, who is leading this bike race for the moment. His advantage, the last time we had it, was 5 minutes over Iban Mayo, who in fact has taken off quite dramatically to try and pull back this gap, but it's going to be a tall order to try and pull back that amount of time in just 11 kilometers. Miguel Martinez now caught and passed by the yellow jersey group, and Axel Merckx is still in contact with Iban Mayo for the moment, but what a tough day in the saddle for Miguel Martinez, mountain biker turned Grand Tour rider.
Yes, and a racer too, Paul. He's willing to go out and try, and you always admire a man for doing that. Stuart O'Grady really finding it tough now. O'Grady passed now after a brave attack, but now passed by the driving of Rubiera here. And Armstrong, Rumsas is there as the riders now begin to crack, because this is Igor González de Galdeano. He too has hit the hard times on La Plana. Don't forget he's 4th place overall. A chance perhaps for Levi Leipheimer to close time on him before the time trial. González de Galdeano 8:50, while Leipheimer is at 13:05. He could get a couple of minutes with luck here. Up to the leader now, as this is Carlos Sastre passing Axel Merckx, and he's absolutely flying up this mountain.
Absolutely.
Now that's Turpin gone.
He's caught Turpin. There can only be one man in front right now, and that will be Iban Mayo. He's just ticking out his own pace making here and riding a sensible pace, hoping to try and pull himself back to this man who is currently surviving with a 5-minute advantage. He looked across to the left there to see just how much further he had to go to the summit of this climb. Well, he still has to get to the 10-kilometer to go banner. He now, Phil, is ticking out a very good rhythm. He's not showing any signs of weakness at all, but all he can think about doing on today's stage is riding to the maximum of his ability right now and just hope that he doesn't hit the wall. But he has been eating well. He's been doing everything to absolute perfection.
Well, Boggart knows that everybody is chasing him down, but this is a big effort here now by Iban Mayo, the rider who is trying to salvage something for the team. They've had not a lot to shout for. They've earned hardly any money in the Tour de France this year. Top payday for the moment for the teams is some $50,000 won by US Postal. But of course that shoots up and quadruples and more once you pay out the overall final classification. That's just one on the road, on stage prizes. But now this is Ludovic Turpin is going back now to the peloton, having been out there all of the time with that breakaway, but the steep slopes of La Plana has cracked the majority. Here comes Rubiera. Armstrong is there. His two main rivals are right behind him, and are they waiting or are they unable to do anything? There we are, Armstrong, Paul, still looking very, very cool, not under any pressure. Leipheimer is there and gaining ground because Igor González de Galdeano has lost contact.
Well, the way he rides is absolutely superb. This is Axel Merckx. He was in the breakaway a long time on today's stage, going out at the back of the yellow jersey group of Lance Armstrong. Lance is riding a very psychological race here, riding at the front, showing all of his competitors just how strong he is today and tempting them, goading them to come forward and try and attack him.
Well, poor old Ludovic Turpin has dropped there. We saw him just tail from the back of the peloton as we join the back here. This is David Moncoutier, who had a great day yesterday and is up there now as, I think, second best Frenchman in the overall classification. He is actually the best Frenchman. He's gone over the top of Vironk and Jalabert after his fine ride yesterday, and that's a big honour for a Frenchman in the Tour de France.
Well, he had said he wanted to finish in the top 10 when this race gets to Paris, and with a good ride on today's stage, he just might be able to move up that little bit further. This man is doing a superb ride here. He's been regarded as the leader of CSC Tiscali. Carlos Sastre has taken over the realm of leadership from Tyler Hamilton in this year's Tour de France, and right now he's catching Iban Mayo. Iban Mayo, the Euskaltel-Euskadi rider, has tried to bridge the gap, and right now it's looking very good for Michael Bogart because he still has a 5-minute lead over Carlos Sastre, who's doing an excellent job right now.
That was a superb piece of riding. He just rode past Mayo, one of the best climbers around, and just made him look as though he was standing still. Well, Sastre is doing himself no end of good here, lying 14th overall. He only has to gain a minute or so to shoot up the overall classification. This man is doing the ride of his life, and I think we're all beginning to hope now that he actually wins the stage, because Michael Bogart has been on the attack since the bottom of the Col de la Madeleine by himself.
See, the face on Michael Bogart right now is telling us all about the pain and suffering that he's going through. It will be made just a little bit easier by the fact that he knows he's got a huge margin over the chasers, and the first chaser on the road right now is Carlos Sastre, and that sign over the road is going to be a breath of fresh air for him, because that will indicate that he has just 10 kilometers to go. He attacked after 40 kilometers of today's stage and went away on his own. He built up a maximum advantage at one stage of almost 9 minutes over the main field, and that right now has come down to around about 5.5 minutes, when it should be enough to survive. As long as he doesn't crack and as long as he doesn't hit the wall, this Dutchman today should take the glory for the House of Orange.
He's got another corner coming up. It'll switch him right back onto his right shoulder in the field, next field above. Another flag from Great Britain there now. There's many Americans on this mountain as well, as Carlos Sastre, who's only won one race in his life, is trying to catch up with the leader. Just looking at Sastre here, Paul, spent all of his career with the Once team. Now he's gone on to the CSC team with Bjarne Riis. He is a team leader in his own right here. He's been given promotion when Tyler Hamilton wasn't penetrating the leaderboard as the team had hoped. Because don't forget, Tyler finished second in the just finished Tour of Italy. It's asking a lot to expect a rider to do two big tours these days. As we see the peloton here slowly getting smaller. But Mayo has got himself onto the back of this group now. But still up there are the two riders one-on-one. And it's Sastre versus Bogart. And Mayo just cracked.
Well, Mayo's gone off the back of the group here. This is Stéphane Goubert just in front of David Moncoutier. He's the second place rider in the overall classification right now, because he will have leapt over the top of Richard Vironk. Vironk, I would think, will disappear way down the overall standings tonight, because he has not made contact at all with this group, and he's been in difficulty on every climb of the day so far. Armstrong is still looking comfortable at the front of the pack. Raimundas Rumsas is in second position there. Rumsas, if he wants to get second place, Phil, needs to go out on the attack right now and try and dislodge the Spanish shadow that he's had overall. Number 21, Joseba Beloki, as they go around the corner, indicating number 10. 10 corners to go to the summit, and around about still 800 meters of climbing.
And according to our computer, 9 kilometers still to go to the finish. Now that is possible that Sastre could pick up the leader here and get the best result of his career. As I say, he's only won one race in his life. It was the third stage of the Tour of Burgos last year, a race in Spain. And he's largely been a main serious helper for team leaders on the squad of Once. But now he's got his own chance on this team. He was a great ally to Tyler Hamilton in the Tour of Italy, and now there's a chance for Tyler to repay him here.
Well, all of the big names are in that group. In first place is Ribiera, Armstrong second. Then moving up to the tail end of Armstrong is Raimundas Rumsas. They're all in this group, and they're all racing against this unbelievable backdrop of the Alps, which fortunately, I have to say, Phil, the weather reports turned out to be wrong, because there was a big threat of rainstorms and clouds coming in for the latter part of the afternoon, but for the moment that seems as if it's going to hold off. Michael Bogard will receive the accolades of the Dutch crowds towards the summit, but this man will receive the accolades of the Spanish supporters.
Yes, they will indeed. And don't forget, they've all been watching the big screen at La Plagne. They know the heroic ride of Michael Bogard today, and it's a Dutchman playing in the mountains, which is very unusual. There were some good Dutchmen like Henny Kuiper who could do it. He twice won at Alpe d'Huez, but now what a great ride this is by Michael. 4:41, it's still there, the gap is still there. Carlos Sastre has closed in no more than 20 seconds on Michael Bogard.
Well, Bogard will have dosed his effort throughout the whole of his escapade this afternoon, knowing he had to keep something in reserve. Stefan Goubert there, number 207, he's about to crack and go off the back, but he's still pretty high in the overall standings. In fact, at the start of the day, he was 15th, and if he can stay fairly close to the heads of state here, he should keep himself well up in there in that position by the end of today's stage. But again, going to the front of this group, on the right-hand side, the white jersey there is Ivan Basso. Roberto Heras, Phil, still riding a very defensive race. Francisco Mancebo just at the back there as well, with Santiago Botero, the Colombian rider who gave all of Colombia a huge cheer yesterday by taking that victory, a victory that was followed very much like the performances of Jean-Paul Montoya in the Formula One races.
Absolutely. 10 kilometers to go now for the chaser. So he's still over 1.3 kilometers behind Michael Bogard, and that might be enough, but it looks as though he's into his rhythm here, and he's really got the master of La Plagne just for the moment at least. But behind, it looks as though David Moncoutier was preparing to be dropped as well, and I didn't like the proximity of Levi Leipheimer. He was about 3 from the back of that line, so let's hope he can hang on, because this man, if he gains 4 minutes over Leipheimer today, will move up over that rider in the top 10 for Sastre, and it'll be just on the edge of the top 10 for Leipheimer. 10 kilometers to go for the peloton, so they're not that far behind, in fact, Sastre. Very select little group this is now. There's Moncoutier, he's still there at the moment, and the Benesto rider is Unai Osa, who is beginning to slip away. Osa's been in the early breakaway today on the Madeleine, so he's going steadily down through the pack. He'll just have to keep on his rhythm and hope. Botero's still here. He's a changed man after a couple of days in the Alps, isn't he? 15 minutes behind on Mont Ventoux. Won yesterday and is still here today. But to me, Paul, it's indicating that Beloki and Rumsas have not got the ability to raise the game.
Well, they were looking a bit worried then when Roberto Heras started moving to the front of the group, and I think they were suspecting an attack was going to come from Roberto. In fact, he just moved up alongside Armstrong to have a chat to see how he was, and maybe asked permission to attack at this stage of the game. He wanted to know how Armstrong was. This man is just hoping to survive right now. He's just got to tick out the rhythm. He still looks fairly strong, but look at the sweat and the heat that is appearing on his brow right now from what has been a very long and painful escapade.
Well, it's a fantastic ride. We're looking at the shadow of Sastre here. There he is. Now there's cars in front. I don't think he's closing in yet. We're still indicating 4 minutes 24 seconds behind the leader for Sastre. And Sastre is not that far ahead. He's just over 35 seconds in front of Heras, Ribiera, etc. And if Heras were to attack, he'd be on this rider in a matter of half a kilometre.
Well, there's only 30 seconds between him and the group of Lance Armstrong. Bogard starting to suffer right now, but the encouragement coming alongside there, trying to just push this man. People realise the kind of pain he's had to put himself through for the whole of this afternoon, because many of the people at the side of the road have actually been following this on portable TVs, watching the live coverage of the performance of this man from Holland. 32 years of age, a former winner of the Amstel Gold Race, and last year 10th overall in the Tour de France. But what a great performance that would be for him if he could get his team their second win of this year's Tour after the early win by Karsten Kroon.
It's certainly a fabulous piece of riding by Bogart. Looking down now at the armada of motorcycles, all waiting to take the one photograph when one of these stars attacks from the front of this group for the morning's papers, and Armstrong has got everything under control. Behind him is Rumsas. He just hooks on like the best limpet in the business, and he doesn't move. He follows Armstrong wherever he rides. Now you get some idea of how fast they're climbing, because this man clearly could take part in the Olympic Games if he carries on running like that.
Moncoutier surviving, the best Frenchman in this year's bike race. Ahead of him, Levi Leipheimer still looking very comfortable. Out of the saddle, his morale will be boosted today by the fact that they've got a super possibility of getting themselves a stage win at the end of the day with Michael Bogart. No attacks at all coming here for the moment, and interesting to see that Roberto Heras has just dropped back there into 4th or 5th position. He's had a very easy ride over the last few days in the mountains, and he really has said that most of the work has been done by the other riders in the team. He's just been kept in reserve just in case there's a problem.
Well, that's how far we have to go. Arrivé, 7.37 kilometers and counting down for Michael Bogart. And this is a man now who will be delighted to see that 5-kilometer banner. The gradient stays the same, but I think already Heras has left it too late for any heroics from the bunch now, because I don't think it's possible for him to catch up with this man. Not at 4 minutes 50. Well, I haven't said that, Paul. It's come down to 4 minutes 50. And we're not at the 5-kilometer point. I've got a feeling that Sastre, although started off well, is beginning now to crack a little bit. This is his face here. It is a vicious climb, this. We can't overemphasize just how steep this climb is.
It's a very difficult climb to judge. 18 kilometers of pain all the way to the summit of this climb. And right now this man is just trying to find a rhythm and hope. As we look here, this is Michael Bogart getting a sponge from probably one of the Dutch supporters at the side of the road, and that will be absolutely refreshing. And if that water is ice cold, it can really snap you out of the kind of lethargy that can come over the body when you've been on a climb for this length of time.
He still looks good. I mean, we expect him to be suffering, but he still looks as though it's strong, and he still feels good. And he just needs a little bit of a kick now, a little bit of inspiration, and I think the 5-kilometer banner might give him that.
Well, he was pretty unfortunate 2 years ago in the Tour de France because he crashed. You remember that very dramatic crash on a descent towards the end of the Tour de France on the 20th stage? They were just going down a slight left-hand bend, and about 5 riders went down, and this man was one of the riders who had to be evacuated away from the race, and so close to the finish on the Champs-Élysées he couldn't quite make it. And what a revenge he would get on that if he could get himself the stage win today. And there's the Dutch national flag on the right-hand side.
Well, that must help. There's the American flag showing the strength of the crosswind blowing from the right at the minute, as Michael Bogart tries to get the best stage win of his career in a big Tour. Sastre trying to spoil the party, but not closing in that fast. He is pulling away ever so slightly. He's just on 58 seconds or so now ahead of the Armstrong group, so he's still moving clear. That's they're the villages which lie on the climb up towards the climb of La Plagne today. And you can see there the twists and turns of the mountain as it finds the least arduous route from the valley to the top. Well, the riders might not agree they've succeeded in that search right now, as here we see the same little group. They seem to have settled in now. Nobody has been dropped for a while. Moncoutier is hanging on at the back. Yvon Basso is here too. Oh, I haven't said that. Perhaps David Moncoutier isn't hanging on at the back.
Just about to crack right now. Moncoutier, the best placed Frenchman in the Tour this year. The leader of the Cofidis team is just disappearing off the back of the group, and when this happens, all you can do is forget about trying to stay in contact, find a rhythm, and try and lose as little time as possible on the way up to the summit. And right in front of him, taking last position in the group right now, is Levi Leipheimer. Starts the day in 9th place in the overall classification. But what a job this man is doing. Chechu Rubiera, His eyes are just concentrated on a small piece of road, maybe 20 or 30 meters in front of him. He's keeping the pace as high as he can. His body is screaming to stop right now, but he knows he can't. He knows he has to just keep riding to keep Armstrong at the front end of this group to prevent anybody launching a surprise attack.
Adje van Heuvelingen all of a sudden must be thinking it could be a great stage win in for the team here, as behind Levi Leipheimer is thinking of trying to get a good finish. Overall, this man is thinking no more than the win on the day. He was 10th in the Tour last year, crashed the year before that, and he's still looking for the 5 kilometers to go, which at the moment is just over a kilometer away. There's Richard Virenque's name written on the roof of the house here. Well, Richard today is by now a long way behind.
As are a lot of other riders, including Robbie McEwen, the man who leads the green jersey points competition. He was dropped very early on the Col de la Madeleine, as was Eric Zabel, and these men will all be just trying to survive on this very long ascent up to the finish. And 179 kilometers the race was today, and of that 179 kilometers, almost 50% of that was uphill. Rumsas getting a bit frisky right now, out of the saddle, coming up alongside Armstrong. But still, Armstrong has exactly the same position, exactly the same attitude, just sitting on the wheel of his teammate Rubiera. This is Leipheimer, 101 on the back, the leader of the Rabobank team today, but most of the glory for the Dutch team today will lie on the shoulders of the man who's opened up the race since the 40th kilometer, Michael BOOGERD here, who still holds on to a 3-minute advantage, but it is now starting to come down pretty rapidly to Carlos Sastre.
Oh, the whole body is putting power into those legs right now just to try and get up the mountain. Every time he picks his head up, he'll only see the road kick again. At least he's got the crowd shouting him on. They, of all the people, appreciate just how hard this mountain is. Many of them have ridden up here on the bike as well. So they know the strength of this man, and the pursuit continues. And it is closing now rather rapidly. 2 minutes 51 seconds is the gap now. Sastre still has a chance here. He all of a sudden has accelerated. He's now more than a minute ahead of the Armstrong group. And is this Mancebo in a spot of bother at the back now? It looks as though it might well be. So he too has cracked. Well, he's hanging on. He hasn't gone yet.
This is a horrendous climb in the fact that it just seems to go on forever and ever. It never gives up. The gradient, the average is 7% all the way to the summit there, and that's where we're headed to right now on today's stage of the Tour de France. It's uphill all the way from here to the finishing line. The man who leads the bike race is still 5.6 kilometers away from the finish, and normally on a flat stage that's only about 7.5 minutes, but it's going to take him closer to 15 minutes today. Lance Armstrong, faithful teammate, and he's still got 2 teammates in this group right now. Chechu Rubiera on the front. Jose Luis is setting such an incredible tempo that a lot of other bike riders are being put into difficulty. Mancebo is having a hard time just holding on to the back. Santiago Botero in the green jersey here is the man who won yesterday's stage. He too is suffering. He's as much as he can, Phil. He's digging into his resources after a long breakaway yesterday to stay in contact with the yellow jersey group.
10 riders there are left in Armstrong's bunch, and Chechu is really suffering now. I don't think he's going to stay there much more than another kilometer before his legs will just say, we can't handle this anymore. But now comes the leader, and coming ever so slowly, but coming he surely is Carlos Sastre. 2 minutes 46 now. Heuvelingen doing everything he can. He won't be allowed to keep his car here because he will be protecting him from the crosswinds, and he's just gone up there to briefly give him a little a show of encouragement, and maybe to tell him that banner says 5 kilometers to go, Michael.
Got to really dig deep right now. It's been a long effort for this man as he cruises across the signs for Miguel Martinez and the other French riders, Jaja and Virenque. He has got to concede 30 seconds for every kilometer remaining right now if he's going to win this bike race, because his advantage at the moment is 2 minutes and 37 seconds. It's a tough call for a man like Carlos Sastre to pull that much time back. But he will be a lot fresher than a man who leads the bike race at the moment, because he's been sitting in the main field for almost the whole of today's stage.
Well, it's still nibbling down. 2:37 now. He's knocked another 4 seconds off. He's not coming that fast. But if Bogart cracks now, he'll be on him in a flash. 4.5 kilometers to go to the summit today. It is where the finishing line is. We're actually about 2 kilometers short of the actual summit of La Plana. And thank heavens they haven't taken them up there, Paul, because we're looking out of our window and it just goes up and over. It's a horrible climb.
Roberto Heras now.
So Chechu has had to call best, and he's sailing out the back there on the left.
Yeah, there what a job, and look at the difference in the pace now. He's done a magnificent job, this man. He really is the super domestique that everyone would like to have on their team, one of the top Spanish climbers, and now at the service of Lance Armstrong. This is why Roberto Heras has been kept in reserve. He waited until Rubiera had done all of the work that he could. Heras himself, Phil, is in 8th place in the overall classification, and now he's picking the pace making up, and I don't think there's too many bike riders will be able to attack this pace, because Roberto Heras is a brilliant bike rider. Look at that, popping off the back there. You can see Rubiera has done his job. Yes, Rubiera's gone, so too Mancebo. The increase in pace by Heras has finally cracked the determination of Francisco Mancebo, which means we are 8 men now left in this bunch, which was rather large and just down in the valley. And Levi Leipheimer is still there, knowing that it's his teammate who is blazing the trail to glory today and the first prize on what has been the toughest of mountain crossings today. I cannot believe he thought he was going to stay away and win the stage when he attacked, but he's got to give it his shot now, and he's going to hang on with every ounce of strength. 2:30 now. Another couple of seconds has been chipped off by this rider here, Carlos Sastre, and there is the, I think that's the 5 kilometers to go now for Sastre. Yes, it is. Well, he's slowly but surely eating into this advantage, and you can see the difference in the pedaling action right now. His pedaling action is a lot faster right now. He's a lot closer to 85 revolutions a minute. He's around about 2.5 minutes. And we're hearing now that Santiago Botero is going out of the back of Lance Armstrong's group. But that's not surprising, Phil, after the breakaway that he did yesterday of almost 160 kilometers. Well, Leipheimer won't be unhappy about that, because Botero came over the top of him in the overall yesterday after his ride. And here he is. Botero is now doing his own version of rocking and rolling as he loses contact approaching 5 kilometers. 2 minutes 20 is official at 5 kilometers to go for Sastre. He's continuing to catch, and I've got a horrible feeling, Paul, he will catch him. It's going to be tough, because the man at the front, look at the difference in the pedaling action. He's rolling his body around, just trying to find a little bit of weight to go down with those pedals each time he pushes down. You can see now the group of Lance Armstrong, 3 minutes and 10 seconds to Armstrong's group, so they are only about 40 seconds behind Carlos Sastre, and now it's a much fresher man on the front. Roberto Heras is setting the pace making. If this man loses 2 minutes on this group, the man here we're looking at in the green shorts, then Levi Leipheimer will move up 1 more place in the overall classification tonight. Well, when we came up this mountain in 1987, Stephen Roche knew that Pedro Delgado had to beat him up this mountain by more than 2 minutes, because Roche knew he could beat him in the final time trial at Dijon. At the bottom of the climb, Delgado had more than 2 minutes. At the top of the climb, Stephen Roche was in oxygen debt, but he'd saved the day and he went on to win the Tour. And Pedro is sitting 3 people away from us now, and I wonder if he's reliving this climb now. I'm pretty sure he is, because it was an important climb for him in 87 and in 84 as well. But this climb has always created some huge time gaps. In fact, when Fignon won this stage here in 1984, he won the stage by a couple of minutes, and it was really the battle behind between Roche and Pedro Delgado that was quite important. Now, there's no easy way to the top. There's no energy to be saved. There's no pain to be spared. He's just got to give it everything and hope now, because this rider is on a high and he's still closing in, holding at 2:20 for the moment. So he hasn't closed in since the 5 kilometer banner. Bogart will respond, I think, to the many Dutch people on this climb who would not have been expecting to be cheering a Dutchman home today. But the difficult thing about this climb is it never gives up. The gradient continues all the way to the finish line. It's not like 1 or 2 of the climbs that we go up where at least there's a few moments of flat for Michael Bogart to recover. There is no flat at all from here all the way to the finish. We're now looking at Carlos Sastre making his way under the 4 kilometre to go banner. He's slowly but surely pulling himself closer, but hopefully for Michael Bogert, he deserves to win. And if the gods of cycling are breathing on his neck today, hopefully it's a tailwind.
He's pulled back 10 seconds in a kilometre as we go back to the bunch, and this is it move now. Well, it's up to Beloki and Rumsas. They're the men behind Armstrong. He's had enough. He's going for it, and he still has a chance of catching the leader. And there's no reaction. No reaction at all. Raimundus Rumsas was on the front of the group, and he wants to really bang home today the superiority that he's had in the Tour de France so far. This is the man who is leading the bike race, Michael Bogert. He doesn't really know what's going on in the race behind him as Armstrong comes out, and he now is in lone pursuit of Carlos Sastre, who is in second place on the road. Let's have another look, Phil, at how that happened. He was in second place behind his teammate Roberto Heras, and all they can do is just look at this man fly. Rumsas looked, was in the perfect position and didn't even alter his rhythm because he had no answer to the increase in pace. Now Armstrong has left himself enough time here to wipe out the two leaders, I think. He's got to bridge a gap of 50 seconds on Sastre and approximately 3 minutes on the leader on the road. Well, you know what, when you think back to this training camp in the month of May, Phil, when he rode the whole of this stage, got to La Plagne, turned round at the top and went and rode it again, you realise this man knows more about this climb than any other man in that group. And I think it'll be interesting to see if he does manage to bridge the gap. And look how quickly he's bridged that gap almost to Carlos Sastre. It'll be interesting to see what would happen if he caught Michael Bogert, because Michael Bogert beat Lance Armstrong in a sprint finish at the Amstel Gold Race a couple of years ago by less than the width of a tyre. Yes, and as I said at the time, Paul, that if Bogert had been riding in any other country but his own country, he wouldn't have won that sprint. It was an inspired sprint that pipped Lance to the line. Interesting to see if Lance catches up, whether he would allow Bogert his moment of glory on this tough day. We'll see, because we might get the answers to these questions now. These boys are finished. There is nobody now to stop Lance Armstrong walking away with the Tour de France. Their legs are done for, as now Armstrong isn't very far behind Carlos Sastre, maybe 15 or 20 seconds. The arrival of the yellow jersey is imminent. There's anger in that face and concentration. He's reliving his training days of a couple of months ago. He knows every hole in this road. Well, on that occasion, he was in the saddle for 7.5 hours, and 4.5 of those hours, Phil, were at maximum effort, which is absolutely remarkable that a man can go out and actually train that hard. But that's exactly what Lance Armstrong does. He trains over the full distance of many of these courses, and right now, just around the corner in front of him there, he can almost see the shadow of Carlos Sastre. They are separated by absolutely nothing at all. And Sastre is exactly 2 minutes at 3 to go behind the leader on the road. Here he is, almost a kilometre ahead now, and that is all. Armstrong is closing in. This man is head bowed. He can't believe this hill just goes on and on and on. It never stops. The gradient exactly the same. Even past the finish line, they're going to have to catch the bike riders today, Phil, because it doesn't level out. It carries on up for another 2 kilometres to the summit of this climb here at La Plagne. It is quite remarkable. The cars in front, you can just see there, the chaos. That is Carlos Sastre. He's not much more than 5 or 6 seconds ahead of Lance Armstrong. Here he is right now, his jersey wide open, trying to get as much cool air as he can into himself. And we can see here that the crowd are going absolutely ballistic, encouraging all of these riders. And these men here at the side of the road come from all over the world to see this bike race, and they're encouraging an incredible performance by Lance Armstrong. There at last, he has Carlos Sastre in his sights. 5 seconds a gap, that's all it is between these two. They are racing for second place on the day, but Lance Armstrong is just pulling away to a clear lead in the Tour de France, which will be over 5 minutes by the end of today. And there's still another big mountain stage to come tomorrow before the Alps are behind them. And I don't think there'll be any enthusiasm for these mountains tomorrow by anybody else in the Tour de France except the man in the yellow jersey.
except the man in the yellow jersey who knows that over these mountains he's getting closer and closer to his 4th victory in the Tour de France. This is unbelievable. It's absolute concentration. He waits for the moments that he wants to stamp his authority all over this bike race. Once again, he's sat in the slipstream of his team, which really, I think, Phil, now has to be regarded as the best team in the world. He's made the contact with Carlos Sastre. He'll come up alongside him, just a glance across to look at him.
2 kilometers to go. There it is. Armstrong has joined the Sastre. We'll get a time check shortly on Michael Bogart. And they are together. Sastre looks as though he still has something left in those legs as he zips up his jersey. Takes the wheels of Armstrong with no further time check coming on that 2 kilometer check at the moment. But it must be around about 1 minute and 30 seconds.
It's going to be tough for the man at the front of the race. He's really going to have to dig deep. His body will be telling him, please stop, let me have a day off, let me just finish the bike race right now. But he can't, because he's now inside the 1 kilometer to go sign, and that, I think, is going to breathe a huge sigh of relief for this man, because now he will win the stage, Phil. He must have been worried a moment ago when he heard that the yellow jersey had flown out of the group. The sweat is pouring off the face of Lance Armstrong. The concentration is in his eyes. He's fixed on the sight of the road in front of him. All he wants to do is build time between himself and the rest of the pack.
Just how much more can Sastre take sitting on the back of this locomotive? Because it is 150. In fact, that's good enough. That's good enough for a well-deserved win by a great bike rider in Bogart. Armstrong, I think, would not have wanted to have wiped him out after the journey over the Alps today for him. But more importantly to Lance, he is adding time with every turn of the pedals now, and he pedals pretty quickly. Sastre, I'm not so sure will hang on if Lance kicks again at the kilometre. But these are the riders on 2nd and 3rd on the road. We've forgotten already about Beloki and Rumsas because our cameras are not going back to them anymore, because we're watching Armstrong make good his overall lead in the Tour de France, certain now to go over 5 minutes. Here they are. Beloki showing strain on his face now. So too Rumsas, who has no more in there. Still, we've got Ivan Basso confirming his lead in the white jersey as newcomer and young rider to the Tour de France. Leipheimer is still there as well and might even climb up 1 place overall. And I wasn't sure then, Paul, but I wasn't sure. I saw Heras.
Heras was there. Just caught a quick glimpse of him sitting on the back. He won't do anything at all to contribute. Look at this. He checks over his shoulder. He wants to know where is the yellow jersey. He knows he's coming fast, but he knows that he's a long way behind Armstrong now at the 1 kilometer banner. It's very close, but in theory, Michael Bogart should not be much more than 500 meters to go to the finish line.
And he's smiling now. That was a smile, I was sure of that. He knows now they're not going to pick him up. It's a gentle right-hand bend as he comes up to the line here at La Plana. He must feel as though he's just climbed from base level to the moon, because this is such a mountain. And he's been the hero of the day. Is he breaking away from that group? Yes, he's going to love this one now. That's a real smile.
It's been tough, you know. It's really been a long, hard 18-kilometer climb, and once he heard the yellow jersey had escaped the pack, he must have wondered whether he had enough time, but now he has, and he'll enjoy this victory salute because he's been dreaming about it for almost 3.5 hours.
And probably more than that, Paul, probably 6 years, because that's when he last won his only stage of the Tour de France in the pouring rain of Aix-les-Bains in 1996. At that time, he was being tipped as a winner of the Tour de France. He finished 10th last year. He has finished 5th in the past. The crowd react to a hero of the mountains today. He can't believe he held them off. That is an extraordinary performance. That will go down as one of the best. Well done, Bogart.
Unbelievable.
And somebody better catch him.
They better catch him pretty quickly, and the man there just getting inside, because it actually does not level out at all. Armstrong is 500 meters from the finish line right now, but what a great win by Bogart. They're actually lowering up his bike in front of us. Remarkable victory.
5 hours and 48 minutes for Michael Bogart. He is in absolute tears here. And he doesn't matter, laugh, cry, kiss the nearest man he can catch hold of. He doesn't know what to do in front of us as we go back to Armstrong, still gaining on all of his rivals in the Tour de France, going into the final showdown in the mountains tomorrow, and they won't know what to do. He's just eased up here. And he's
like
allowed
he's coming in from a training ride. It's amazing.
Ridiculous.
It really is incredible. The man has planned this Tour de France to absolute perfection, Phil. He's ridden these climbs more than anybody else, and that, I think, is the secret of his success. He goes out in the early part of the year when the temperatures are absolute freezing in snowstorms, rainstorms, and he wants to know just exactly how his body's going to react.
Well, there's a couple of seconds difference in time bones between second and third, and for that reason, I think that's why Armstrong has put Sastre in front of him, because he might well outsprint him to the line. This big man towers over the little build of Carlos Sastre. He doesn't come round him. He says thanks at 1:26. Armstrong comes through. Oh, he's just going to pedal through and look for the showers by the look of it. Here comes Beloki in fourth place. Beloki accelerating away. Rumsas, the limpet, is still locked on his back wheel, but he's not got the better of Beloki yet. He still wants those seconds to claim second of Beloki. And Beloki, I think, will be hard to do that, but Rumsas is a better time trialist than Joseba Beloki. They're split at the moment by enough time, possibly, but Beloki will feel safer if he gains a bit more time by the line, and I would say that's a fourth for Beloki, and the time gap just over 2 minutes. 2 minutes. That means that Armstrong will lead tonight by 6¼ minutes.
Into Clues, and the three leaders, Mario Oertz, Dario Frigo and Giuseppe Guerini, are racing off the last big climb of this year's Tour towards the finish.
The switchbacks of the Col de Colombière on the descent now. Frigo was dropped at the top, but he came back on the flat, and that's him in second place. But again, Paul, Mario Oertz is showing them, even if he is a Belgian, he knows how to go up and down mountains.
But he's a good bike rider. He's been a winner of the Flèche Wallonne, which proves that you do know how to go up hills. A different kind of hill, albeit from the hills we've been over this afternoon, but he is a brilliant downhill bike rider. The two Italians here are absolutely panicking. Frigo having a hard time getting himself around the corners as quick as the Belgian. The Belgian former BMX rider is going round these corners at the moment without even touching his brakes. He's pushing the speed to 50-55 miles an hour around these corners, and you try and do it on a wheel as thin as that. As we're now looking at one of the groups caught in the middle, and they in fact regrouped somewhat on the descent here. And there's somebody just going around the corner there, and it may well be that that is Santiago Botero, because he is giving it full gas on this descent. In fact, he isn't. He's still off the back with his teammate. This is Gutierrez, who's trying to stay in contact with his own teammate right now. I think the group of the men who are in between are just in front of those cars there. But look at the descent here by Santiago Botero. And this is the yellow jersey group.
Well, the yellow jersey group went under the 10 kilometres to go banner virtually the same time as the three leaders went under the 5 kilometres to go banner. So they're not coming across that gap before the finishing line today. They can relax a little bit and start thinking how they're going to beat one another at the finishing line as we descend now, not far away from, we are in the outskirts of the finishing line here at Cluse.
Right now, it is so important for one of these men to get themselves a stage victory. And both of the two men in second and third position, their teams have had wins. Lotto have had a win with Robbie McEwen. McEwen also leads the best sprinters competition, the green jersey. Telecom have had a win with Eric Zabel. Tacconi Sport, the team of Dario Frigo, have yet to open up their account.
These are the second group on the road now as we look sitting on the back here waiting and waiting as long as he can is Marcos Serrano. No help at all, of course, for Sastre or Moncoutier, but there is a desperate chase going on behind, and he can't be more than 200 meters back, and that is Santiago Botero with Gutierrez. Back to the leaders here. They are looking for the 2 kilometers to go banner right now, and as we cross over the main motorway, Guerini is sat at the back now for about 2 kilometers as well. It's a nice road just here, but it doesn't stay that way as we approach the finish. That's 2 kilometers to go, Paul.
It's a tricky finish, and I hope these guys have actually looked at the race handbook the night before, because in fact, with just about 150 meters to go, there's a nasty right-hand bend. Unfortunately, it's not a big bunch sprint charging down here into the finishing Clues, because if it was, there would almost certainly be a stack up. You can see the strongest man in this group is Frigo. He's got a lot of power in those thighs, but the man who is very nervous in second position there is Mario Oertz, the Belgian rider. He looks as if he's got the acceleration to get by Frigo. I would expect Frigo will open up the sprint once we get to 300 or 400 meters to go, and if he's got the kick, then Mario Oertz will try and come by him. But watch out for a last-minute attack by the man in third place.
Now this is the bit of construction I mentioned earlier. And watch out now, because Guerini is waiting here. He's going to take a flyer from the back. He's lined up just far enough to gather that speed. And Frigo, I would have thought, would not want to be in first place right now, and yet he seems to be content to hold it. And Ertz is rather like a track finish, because here it goes. He gave plenty of warning to everybody, and he's being chased by Mario Ertz. And I think that might send the advantage to Ertz, because Guerini has gone far too far out. At a kilometre to go, he'll have to do it all again. Now, this is the turn that Paul mentioned as we start to sweep around the corner here. And a massive, massive crowd in Clusa. But there's no straight finish here in the last kilometre today of the Tour de France. Ertz has done well to shut off. And here goes the counter. Frigo tempting them to open up the sprint. Nobody wants to lead it out, of course, because that's the advantage to the other two. And they go again. In fact, they hesitated there because Frigo is looking at Ertz, and this might be it. Guerini, the man that last won on the top of Alpe d'Huez, when Eric the photographer knocked him down inside of the finish, he's gone again. It's a desperate end, and Ertz is time trialing his way back up, and he's beat him, he's caught him, he's hooked up. This is a desperate finish for men who are not pure sprinters.
500 metres to go. This is so far has gone towards the advantage, I would say, of Dario Frigo, because Ertz has responded to both of the attacks by Guerini, and I think Guerini's lining himself up to do another one. Frigo needs to open up the sprint because he's a much stronger bike rider but doesn't have the acceleration. Guerini fighting to stay in third position there, but Frigo, I tell you, Phil, looks very calm and very strong as we come into the final straight.
Well, here's where he must go again, but Mario Ertz, his only win of the year, the Flèche Wallonne Classic in Belgium, and Tacconi Sports' Dario Frigo is going to get the win. The man who dangled off the back of the race on the descent, they should have got rid of him because he's won the day.
Well, you know, he really played into the hands of Telecom there. Telecom's Guerini attacked several times and forced Mario Ertz to come up and try and drag him back. And I think that long time trialing section he put in there to come onto the wheel of Telecom's Guerini really put the nail in the coffin for him. And that's when Frigo was just sitting there, calm as you like, waiting for the moment to pounce. A great win for him, opening up the account for Tacconi Sport, getting themselves the first win. Botero is there, Phil, at 2 kilometres to go. He has made the contact with this group. What a brilliant descent. This man is moving up the overall standings tonight.
Time may be on his side here, and that was his last big chance to push on. He did it on the Col de la Colombia. He will race all the way to the line. He's not looking for fourth place, and his teammates helping him here. They're looking to gain every second because he could well be in a fourth place situation.
Well, a minute and a half is all he needs to move into fourth place in the overall classification. He won't get any help at all from the men in pink because it's their place. Jose Acevedo, he's in fourth place at the start of today, and a good ride by Botero. 1.5 minutes is all he needs, and he'll pop up into fourth place, and he should be able to keep that because he's also an excellent time trialist.
And even Thor Hushovd has done well to rejoin this group on the descent now as we rush ahead with our camera to see who is up the road here, because somebody has slipped away from the field, and this might well be David Moncoutier who's gone clear in a big effort to go to the line. It is indeed Moncoutier. Remember, he too is best Frenchman in the Tour de France. He must have got away with a demon descent.
Brilliant ride by him. He's outfoxed everybody on that descent right there. All the information we got from the race was that he was still in that leading group of chasers with Santiago Botero. He slipped them on the descent, and right now he's time trialing to what should give him fourth place on the road. He's looking over his shoulder now, but he will be moving himself up towards a top 11 or 12th position by the end of today. A good move by this young man, and I think we can expect a lot more of him in years to come.
The best Frenchman in this year's Tour de France, and he's proving that right now. He's had a wonderful day out. He's gaining time as well in the overall classification. He swings up towards the line now. Remember, the winner today, Dario Frigo. The first victory for the Tacconi Sport team, a team with only 5 riders left in the Tour. But this is time gains today for David Moncoutier. He's on the same team as Britain's David Miller. Their careers run in parallel, but it looks as though Moncoutier is developing that little bit better for the long-term climb in the overall classification. The field are right behind him. Botero still pushing at the front as Santiago Botero looks for more time to try and break into the top 4 as well overall.
Well, in the Alps, Botero has been the only man with the legs or the cojones to attack Armstrong, though the German is clearly slower than the Aussie this year. And on yesterday's stage, Zabel acknowledged it. The first hotspot sprint came after only 10 kilometres, a rare opportunity on a mountain stage for the two main men still to be up front and battling for points. However, Zabel sent his teammate Rolf Aldag ahead on a solo break a couple of kilometres in advance in order to mop up the points and make sure there was no sprint. Not a tactic that impressed McEwen.
Shows he's a little bit scared, I guess, and didn't want to sprint. For me, I didn't really care either way. The points are equal, but I still have the jersey, so technically I'm in front and he has to go and find the points, and if he wants to let his teammates go and take the points, then it's not going to help him any, so that's fine for me.
But Zabel hasn't won 6 straight green jerseys without being smart as well as fast. He knows he's stronger over rolling terrain than McEwen, and he fancies his chances today on what is actually a very hilly course. There are also rumours that he's been offered the help of Lance Armstrong towards a record 7th title. Unsubstantiated, of course, and strictly against the race rules if true. What is known, though, is that Armstrong and McEwen aren't the best of mates. And if Robbie's going to become the first Australian to win the green jersey, falling out with the patron of the peloton isn't perhaps the best way to go about it. Today's route was, in official Tour terminology, a rolling stage. In plain English, full of nasty little climbs and not easy at all for the sprinters. Nonetheless, there were 2 intermediate sprints, neither particularly flat, with the usual 6, 4 and 2 points on offer for the first 3 riders, and points for the first 20 placings at the finish. Well, there were no points for either McEwen or Zabel at the first sprint of the day, because for the second day running, Zabel had been happy to send one of his helpers away. His top lead-out man, actually, Gian Matteo Fagnini, who got in a 10-man break that took all the points. There are 2 races in progress on the road to Bourg-en-Bresse, one for the stage win between the 3 leaders, Hushovd, Mongeant and Crediac, another one behind them to decide who's going to take the green jersey. We rejoin it with just under 3 kilometres to go.
These 3 men now, Phil, are all sharing the pacemaking at the front, and they're all now trying to figure out how this sprint is going to unfold towards the end. The freshest rider in the group certainly looks to be the Frenchman there on the far side in the white jersey of the Française des Jeux. And we're looking at these guys right now holding on to their advantage of around about 40 seconds, Phil.
Well, there's a long straight road for you as we now see the city of Bourg-en-Bresse. And the only other Norwegian cyclist, Paul, I can think of having won a stage would be Luzardi Den some years ago when Dag Otto Larsson rode for 7-11.
It was a huge breakaway by Dag Otto on that day, and if I remember, you coined one of your favourite phrases on that instance by saying every Dag has his day.
You pinch all my good lines. Well, these are the remnants, and they've got rid of the sprinters today, but 2 of them are very, very strong finishers, and that is Christophe Moreau and indeed Thor Hushovd. Hushovd, we thought, would have really been another man in that hunt for the green jersey this year, but he seemed to be doing all of that on day 3 on the second road race stage of the Tour when he went away in the breakaway and didn't quite make it to the finish, and in the end was washed away in a terrible state. He lost 19 minutes in the last few kilometres of the day.
2 kilometres to go, and they're getting right into the outskirts of town right now. They're still holding on to most of their 40 seconds advantage over the chasers, and Eric Decker, Leon Van Bon and Gian Matteo Fagnini will be kicking themselves that this group has got off the front. They are still working together. There's no messing around, no tactical manoeuvring for the moment, as the man at the back here, the Frenchman, is tightening up the Velcro straps on his shoes. When you come into a sprint like this, you want to have everything as tight as possible. He doesn't want to have the thought of his foot moving around in those pedals at all here as we get in right close to the 3 leaders. They've all worked well. They've showed no signs of weakness at all.
2K to go now for the chasers today. They're out of it. The winner will come from one of these 3. Hushovd, worst position, will be 3rd. He was 5th yesterday. He's had 2 wonderful days in the Tour de France, and he's only a young man with a great future in front of him. Christophe Moreau, riding his 7th Tour de France, never won a stage since 1997. And there's also Jakob Peel here too, and his experience in the Tour de France is this is his 2nd tour, and last year he finished 117th. and Stuart O'Grady is going off the front of the peloton, looking for more green jersey points. Amazing. Inside the kite, 1 kilometre.
1 kilometre to go. Now, don't forget, the man in the green jersey won the sprint yesterday for 5th place. He was on a mountain stage, and he's not known as a mountain climber. The man on the front from France, he wants to try and get the win. He's in an ideal position right now, pushing the huge Norwegian into 1st place. We're going to get the tactics coming now, Phil. They're all over the road, and they've been away at the front of this bike race since kilometre number 2. And right now, the most important kilometre for them is this last one. Hussoff looks very confident, but he knows the Frenchman has got a very big kick. They are waiting. He's waiting for the sound of the tyres accelerating behind him, and then he will open up the sprint. 500 metres to go. Mongin is still in 2nd, looking over his shoulder to see if there's going to be the return of the group. There won't be. The winner will come from these 3 men.
Well, licking his lips there, Christophe Moreau. He's forced the younger rider to lead him out, which is brilliant, but watch out for Jakob Peel. He can sprint very, very well when it matters. As they come off this bend, they're riding right against the barriers. That's sensible riding by Hussoff to force the attack through on his left. Oh, and Peel pulled his foot off the pedal. It's all over for him. As now this man goes for the line. Now can Manjon come? Here comes the kick of Christophe Manjon now, but he's going to be given a run for his money. He's just going to nose ahead on the line, and I think, and he thinks so too, that Hussoff has won the stage. That was an absolutely fabulous sprint.
That was close. It was so close. Mongin was coming slowly but surely, but the man from Crédit Agricole is a huge monster when it comes to sprinting. Poor old Jakob Peel, Phil, he pulled his foot out in the final sprint here as the next group comes in, and it should be led home quite easily by Leon van Von, because he's the top man. Jorg Jaks will get 5th place, and there and back in 6th position will be Nicky Sorensen.
So they're all in, and poor old Jakob Peel there, Fanini cleaning up from the rest of them here, but he was not at top form when it came down to the last sprint there. Well, it's been a few years since we've seen that situation of pulling a foot off the pedal, but when it happens, it usually costs you dearly. It reminded me of Bob Roll doing the same thing in the Tour of Britain in Cardiff a few years ago when he would have won the stage there.
Well, I hope the interview after the finish is not quite the same as Bob Roll's interview was on that occasion, because most of it was unprintable.
That's quite true, it was. That's why I sent you, Paul. I didn't understand the French language he was using. Well, there's the sprint. Now let's see if we can see it here. Well, it's quite clear from that angle, isn't it? He's won it by a quarter of a wheel.
Absolutely, no problem at all. That's the first victory as well for Crédit Agricole, and now making themselves one of the teams from France who've got themselves a stage victory out of this Tour de France. But what a way to win. He led out, and Mongin could do nothing at all but just come up alongside him. But still charging into town right now. It's still the blue train of Lance Armstrong on the front, setting the pace-making. And there's a few of the sprinters starting to come forward right now, Phil, to get themselves into position for this very important sprint for 11th place. And it's not very often in cycling that you have to sprint for 11th place, but 2 men do today. Robbie McEwen and Eric Zabel have to fight it out, even for the minor places.
The peloton currently split on both sides of the carriageway here. They still have the lead at the front with the boys in blue. Now Stuart O'Grady is still just off the front of this bunch. It'll be interesting now, Paul, to see whether the rumour that abounds that Telecom and the US Postal have formed a combine in favour of Eric Zabel and against Robbie McEwen. And let's see if we can see any evidence of that now, because Robbie McEwen himself is now saying that he doesn't think that is so.
Well, I don't think it is. I think it's just one of those things. Robbie probably said something in the heat of the moment at the end of one of the stages, and it got blown up out of all proportions by some members of the press. Right now, it's the same scenario that we've seen for many, many days with the US Postal Service on the front. But shortly, I'm sure we must see the teams of the sprinters coming forward. There's Rolf Aldag on the far side. Danilo Hondo in the white jersey of the champion of Germany. He's coming up. There's Robbie McEwen's green jersey. He has a teammate up alongside him, and here coming to spoil the party on the right, on the left-hand side, is Ludo Dirksens.
Ludo Dirksens, the big man there in the pink jersey, the teammate of Raimundus Rumsas. Still in control of the peloton at 900 metres is US Postal. Danilo Hondo priming himself up here to lead Eric Zabel to the Hope Green jersey. Watch out on the far right for Robbie McEwen. He looks so cool there as he sits on the back wheel of Zabel. He's waiting for Zabel to make the move now. We go back 3 weeks when Zabel used to complain that Robbie McEwen always follows me. I think we had a crash there to look like something. Maybe we didn't. As we come into the home straight now. Now Hondo has got the lead. Now the big lead out coming from Ralph Aldag. This could be a lead out for Zabel, but McEwen is 2 riders back here. Jan Zerada is butting in for the first time. He's the 3rd wheel now. And 4th is Zabel. 5th is McEwen as we come into the straight now. The big effort, the big lead out. It still looks as though McEwen has a good position. Now he's going on the left of the road. It's all clear sailing for McEwen here because they've given him the perfect lead out. On the line, McEwen gets it, and that will give him a 1-point advantage.
That was a vicious sprint. They were fighting nail and tooth to the line there, Phil. Absolutely unbelievable. A touch of the wheels and Zabel lost his concentration for a fraction. They will be separated now by a single point, and that match will have to resume the day after tomorrow on the slopes of the Champs-Élysées. What a battle that was between those two men. They were really digging deep for that one.
Oh, fabulous sprint, and Robbie McEwen still got the advantage. Tomorrow neither will score points in the time trial. That means there are 2 sprints left in the Tour de France on Sunday, and of course the 35 points for the man who wins the stage, and that is going to be some sprint on the Champs-Élysées.
Took a point. That was the idea of the day. To be honest, I was really worried about this stage and that I'd lose points. Ends up I've taken another one, so that gives me confidence. It was a hard sprint. They're very fast at the end, but I was able to come past Eric, so it's been a top day.
It's all going to come down to the Champs-Élysées. Not an ideal situation, I presume, but how are you feeling about it?
Well, Eric's got it now, a 1-point deficit to make up. So it's up to him and his team to do the work for the intermediate sprints, and it's up to me to try and pass him. So that's the ideal situation at the moment.
So tomorrow's time trial, you'll just be going through the motions, saving all your energy for the Champs-Élysées.
Exactly.
David Miller now into the straight here. There you can see the time of Belovosic's best time in the house. This is going to annihilate that time as David Miller drives on now. He's lost just a fraction perhaps over the last 4 kilometres, but there we are, 1 hour, 5 minutes, 4 seconds. Miller, best time. Well, there you can see the power coming out of the legs of David Miller. It's a very hot day here in Macon, and this is a very hot pace by the Scotsman, and he's got the best time.
An excellent ride from David, and at the finish he was clearly paying for it. He did manage a few words though.
David, you're leading at the moment. Do you think that time's going to last?
Probably not, but I'd like to do top 5. If that leaves me in top 5, I'll be really happy.
Well, not long afterwards, he was down to 2nd as the Hungarian Laszlo Bodrogi came in 8 seconds faster. But as the afternoon wore on and Lance Armstrong worked up a sweat of epic proportions warming up in the shade, Bodrogi's and Miller's times were standing up well. With just the top 4 to go, they still held 1st and 2nd place, ahead of Sergei Honchar, Avis Belovoschik and Victor Hugo Peña. So as we pick it up, just the top 4 men left in the Tour de France have to start: Botero, Romsas, Beloki and Armstrong.
Well, we're looking at this face now as Santiago Botero, a man that lost 15 minutes on the mountains of Ventoux, somehow bounced back and now is challenging for a podium place in Paris. That's a terrific performance so far. Now, can he make Colombia completely happy and get the time that will take him into 3rd place? Here's Andrei Kivilev, first time we've seen him. He finished 4th in the Tour de France last year. And here he comes right in now. David Miller is the man at still the best time at 33 kilometres. Kivilev, look at that, 73rd place. He's having a tough old time. Raimundas Romsas aiming now to become the first Lithuanian to get a place in Paris.
A good start for him, very quickly up to the tempo required to keep the speed at an average of 46 kilometers an hour to take out victory here if he can. On the finish line, it's still Bodrogi first, Miller and then Honchar, but I think those times may well change towards the end. The most important part of this course is dosing your effort over the first 10.5 kilometers, because of the first 10.5 kilometers, 8 of them are uphill. Ivan Basso has come through with a very rapid time, and I think we may well see Basso climbing up into the top 10. And after he crashed out of the Tour last year, this is a superb revenge for this man, who will also take out the title of the best young rider, the white jersey competition, which is an exceptionally prestigious title to take.
Armstrong is underway, a very important day for Lance. Yes, he's going to win the Tour de France, but I think right now he wants to go out with an even bigger flagpole, and that's to win this as well.
Well, he was very hot there. We saw him warming up. He's been warming up for most of the morning. He will have already ridden most of this stage this morning to have a look at the course, to remind himself of the time trial route. He's ridden it several times during the course of his preparation for the Tour de France, but this morning he would want to know just exactly how the wind was, how the wind direction was. And then up until the very last moment, Phil, we saw him on his home trainer, getting his heart rate up, getting the body temperature up, ready to start as fast as possible.
As we get our first chance to look now at Raimundus Rumsas, and his time at 10.5 kilometers will be special, I'm sure.
Well, he's on the hardest part of the course right now, winding his way up through the vineyards to this mountain, which is a huge climb for these riders in an individual time trial. It peaks out at 635 meters, which is just around about 2,000 feet. And that's a tall order for anybody, Phil, after a long bike race around the country of France. And this is the final showdown for many of these men. He is hoping today that he can get one over on Joseba Beloki, but he's going to have to beat the Spaniard by 2 minutes and 18 seconds if he climbs up into second place. And even if he doesn't, a top 3 finish was probably unheard of.
Lance Armstrong blazing a lone furrow across the vineyards here near Mâcon. The undulations, this is a tough one. It's a hard time trial. It might favour the men who are coming out strongest of this race. And certainly Armstrong is one of those. Look at this crowd here now as he changes direction. Even the police there applauding the maillot jaune of the Tour de France and holding the left of the road, taking the shortest way possible. And now Raimundus Rumsas still trying now for a time that will reshape the leaderboard. And I wonder, Paul, I'm expecting best time here.
It's going to be very close, and as he comes up there, 10.5 kilometers covered.
17 minutes and 11 seconds. He has the best time here. Now that will set the trend, and that is the target now for Beloki and Armstrong to shoot at.
This is the man we all expected to see as the big favourite for the time trial today, Santiago Botero. He went through the first time check with at one of the top times, but he's slowly but surely being surpassed there by men like González de Galdeano, Sergei Honchar, Armstrong, and of course the big surprise, I think, to everybody is the name at the top of the board here, Raimundus Rumsas. This is an unbelievable crowd here at the summit of this mountain, and I don't think anybody has jeered Lance Armstrong. It's a complete accolade from France for the man in the yellow jersey.
They recognise the maillot jaune of the Tour de France as they cheer and shout him on. Just look at this Mexican wave right before him. Absolutely incredible atmosphere for Lance. The helicopter ahead waiting for him as the check approaches. And he's gone through that check, and he's gone through in second place. 17 seconds behind Rumsas. There it is. Armstrong just off the pace, but a slower start, Paul, because the course is hard here. Might mean a stronger finish today. As we go down to the finish to see the arrival of Ivan Basso. Basso, who will take that white jersey to Paris tomorrow now. And Ivan Basso coming in with a time which will keep him there, and time will only tell us if he's actually moved up from 11th to 10th overall. This is Beloki, not made a good start at all. And if he keeps descending at the same speed as he is now, he could well see his second place overall passing to Rumsas.
He's coming to the second time check out on the course after 33 kilometers. The fastest man so far at that point is still David Miller, the British rider, with a time of 45.37. But look at this. It is much closer to a half a minute in front of Miller's time. This man is burning up the road.
As he now comes up to the line in 44.54. Now there's the target for Armstrong to aim at. He is approximately 6 minutes behind at this point. So 44.54, Raimundus Rumsas surviving to the 33rd kilometre and still giving it his best effort here.
Armstrong now in the streets of Shan. He's too now looking to find out whether he can rival Raimundus Rumsas at the 33-kilometer time check. And look at this time right now. The man from Texas has picked up the pacemaking, Phil. He is accelerating. He's totally liberated right now. He's still got a little way to go before he gets to that time check, but it is going to be a remarkable time for Lance Armstrong. Raimundus Rumsas was the fastest man at this point, but right now the yellow jersey is beginning to dominate.
Well, he's reversed it on this sector of the course, which is harder than the opening sector, and I thought that Rumsas looked as though he was beginning to suffer. He has now reversed a 17-second deficit here, Lance Armstrong, into an advantage of, well, I don't know what the advantage was now, it's switched. 44.47 anyway for Armstrong.
It's a 7-second advantage. He really has turned the books. He started off economically. He lost 17 seconds at the first time check, but he's now gone through with the fastest time, the time of 44 minutes and 47 seconds, 7 seconds faster than Raimundus Rumsas. The next man to come to the line will be this man, the huge success in Colombia, Santiago Botero. He's won 3 stages at the Tour de France over his lifetime. He's won the King of the Mountains. He's one of the rare men to beat Lance Armstrong in an individual time trial at the Tour de France. And right now what he's looking at is trying to make sure that he keeps himself up in 4th place, because he's not going to win the time trial today as he did between Lanester and Lorient.
No, the same style is there as we saw in Luxembourg in the prologue and as we saw in Lorient in Brittany. But the reward will not be there today, but it'll keep him in a fine finish when he dropped away from the leaderboard on Mont Ventoux, fought his way back in the Alps after Mont Ventoux, and now confirms his high finish with this ride today. He should nicely finish in 4th place and continue his progress as a newcomer, comparative newcomer, into the Tour de France. Former King of the Mountains in the Tour de France, Santiago Botero. Beloki has gone through in 6th place, a minute 22 off at 44.5 kilometers covered. As we watch Botero finish, another man who's coming in here with a time very close to represent his overall position. 6th place at the moment, can't be worse than 8th now, 9th, 1:06:01 for Botero.
Well, that's a good ride by him. Not as good as it was between Lanester and Lorient, but he will be satisfied with that. He'll come out of the Tour de France, Phil, with a 4th place finish overall and 2 stage wins to boot. Joseba Beloki conceding 1 minute and 22 seconds to Raimundus Rumsas means that for the moment he is still in 2nd place overall, and I think he will keep that because he's only 6 kilometers to go to the finishing line right now. So at the moment, the overall classification is still Armstrong ahead of Beloki, ahead of Raimundus Rumsas, but it is going to be very close, and there's no problem at all for Santiago Botero because he will run out 4th place overall.
It is amazing, but with 56 seconds to his favour, Beloki will not lose that surely as they approach the line. But now Armstrong is through, new best time, 57 minutes 01. 34 seconds quicker than Rumsas. Armstrong will win the time trial.
He's turning on the gas right now. He's opening up all the throttles and the afterburners over the last few kilometers. 57 minutes and 1 second is 34 seconds faster than Raimundus Rumsas. But Rumsas now is in the finishing straight. He's digging very deep. He's done an absolutely superb time trial. What will be important for him, though, Phil, is not his time on the line right now, because he's not going to win the time trial. The time between himself and Joseba Beloki is what is important.
And Raimundus Rumsas will rue the day he allowed Beloki to spring clear of him on those hilltop finishes and gain a handful of seconds, because it's cost him 2nd place in the Tour de France. He comes home currently to a cheer and he gets the best time, but wait for the arrival of Armstrong. 1:04:43 for Rumsas, and that when all the calculations are complete, I think he'll have lost 2nd place in the Tour de France by about 45 seconds.
It won't be very much at all, but what a brilliant performance by this man. He went through the first time check with the fastest time, and that would have been somewhat of a shock to Lance Armstrong because he was 17 seconds faster than the man in the yellow jersey then. But Armstrong now, Phil, is getting into his rhythm. He is accelerating as he gets closer towards the finishing line. He went through the 2nd time check after 33 kilometers, 19 miles, the fastest man, and he confirmed that again as they came into the outskirts of Macon at 44 kilometers by a 34-second beating of Raimundus Rumsas at that point. Igor González de Galdeano was a lot further back in a minute 32, and Joseba Beloki at that point was in 7th place.
4 kilometers to go for Lance Armstrong, while we switch back to Joseba Beloki here now. The finish result is beginning to take shape. The only man who will break in there will be Lance Armstrong. He must do a time of 1 hour, 7 minutes and 1 second, Beloki, to hold on to 2nd place. I think he'll do that. Armstrong currently 7 minutes 2 seconds behind officially now, taking into account the time losses and gains today. There he is now in this beautiful wooded boulevard of Macon, as Lance Armstrong is going out of this year's Tour de France on the high note he wanted. by winning the final time trial, and tomorrow he rides to Paris as a triple, well, I've lost count,
Quadruple.
4 wins now.
Quadruple.
4 wins in the time in the stages of the Tour de France, and again that will match the number of victories overall in the Tour de France for him. This is Beloki now, heading down towards the finishing line. Every second will count. He should be okay, but he's aiming for a time not worse than 1 hour, 7 minutes and 1 second. If it is, then he'll stand in his familiar 3rd place on the podium in Paris.
I think he's done enough. He's riding very well right now. He had a tough moment in the middle of the course, but he's picking up his pace, making quite dramatically. Armstrong right now is also riding a superb time trial. He's posted the fastest time check at the last 2 time checks out on the course, and there's no sign at all of weakness in this man. Totally liberated. He's got no more responsibilities. He doesn't have to hold anything back at all today, and tomorrow he will ride onto the Champs-Élysées behind the blue train of the US Postal Service, the train that has guided him around the hexagon of France over the last 3 weeks of bike racing to absolute perfection, being dubbed right now one of the best teams in the world for the last 30 or 40 years.
Armstrong has been the leader at the 2nd and 3rd check. He had to reverse a 17-second deficit on Rumsas. Rumsas has finished with the best time of 1:4:43. And Beloki, now racing into the last kilometre, cannot do worse than 1:7:01. I think he'll be okay, but you never know till the clock confirms it, as he now has 900 metres to go. Tomorrow they can sup the champagne on the road to Paris, but today this is deciding the final finishing position. To David Miller of Britain too, he's looking set now to finish 4th in this time trial today, which proves that he too is coming strongly out of this Tour de France.
Well, he's had a hard day through the mountains. He has recovered and he has lost an awful lot of his time trialing ability, because to finish well inside the top 5 on a day like this, when men are doing battle for the overall placings at the end of 3 weeks of racing, Miller has come up with a fine performance. 500 metres to go for Beloki right now. The time on the clock on the finish line is just 1 hour, 5 minutes and 30 seconds, so there will be no problem at all for this man. He started the day 2 minutes 18 seconds ahead of Raimundus Rumsas. He's conserved enough of that, Phil, to finish 2nd overall.
You're right, he is safe now. It'll be a 1:06 something, so that'll give him the victory of 2nd place by about that 45 seconds I mentioned, because as he comes up to the line, there's the time of Rumsas. Beloki, not the best time trialist in the world, but boy did he suffer today to conserve his 2nd place in the Tour de France. Hits the line in 1:06:01. He saved it by a minute.
Well, that was a brilliant ride by him. He really must have dug deep to stay there and keep himself in 2nd position. It was a position he wanted to keep, but right now we're waiting for just one man out on the road. The time to beat is 1:04:43 of Raimundus Rumsas. Armstrong is not far away right now, and I tell you one thing, this crowd is going to give him a huge ovation. He's in the corner now, Phil. This is an unbelievable ride. The clock says 1:03:31, and listen to the crowd bring the American champion home.
Well, I'll tell you, this man another 2 kilometres would have caught Beloki for 3 minutes, as Armstrong now comes in. Beloki's 1:06:01 and Armstrong just over 2 minutes quicker than him as he races to the line to the victory. 1:03:50. There's no argument who the champion is of the Tour de France for the 4th year in succession.
Well, Phil, look at that average speed as well, 47 kilometres an hour over a very difficult terrain. Armstrong really dug deep for that when he wanted to do that for the pride of the yellow jersey. Unbelievable over the last few kilometres. What a magnificent sight. The man in the yellow jersey, resplendent on the last day, totally liberated to ride this final time trial as hard as he wanted to. And he got what he wanted, the final win in the final time trial of the Tour de France today.
Since Armstrong leading the posties in a rolling toast, that sort of thing. Laurent Jalabert seemed to be on an uncharacteristically self-congratulatory bike, although it actually turned out to be a present from the manufacturers. Anyway, hilarity was suspended for the first sprint of the day, which came after 54 kilometres. Eric Zabel had the Telecom lead-out train, but McEwen had the superior speed. He took 6th for 1st place, Zabel 4 for 2nd, and that meant McEwen's lead was up to 3 points in the green jersey competition. As we pick up the race, it's heading towards the Champs-Élysées, and the home riders are jockeying for position at the front.
Well, this is interesting. That's Christophe Agneluto on the front there. Andrea Perron up into 2nd place. I'm not sure if that is Zabel. It looks actually as if it might be Stefan Weissermann. I can't see the green jersey anywhere at all. So that means at the end of the day that this is going to go down to the very final sprint.
you know what? I think they might well have said to each other, let's just go and sprint for the win and leave it at that, because there was no reaction from either McEwen or Zabel. So we go to the finish of this race now today with 35 points for the winner, 30 points for the second, and there are 3 points between the two. Heras got the 6 points, the first time he'd ever won it. Landis in second, and so that was a little bit of a benefit, I think. As we now head towards the final lap of the Champs-Élysées in the Tour de France. We are seeing Jakob Piel showing one last defiant motion here before the field to wipe him out. Pedro Herrillo is on his wheel. But as they head up towards, that will be where the kilometre will be next time around, under that little homemade tunnel there. Here comes the field, led by Telecom. It'll be the bell this time. That'll leave us just over 6 kilometres to go. 2 riders survive, but not for much longer. You can see the massive crowd down there as the speed over the ground of the peloton, 153 riders all coming together for the last 6 kilometres, I nearly said miles, of the Champs-Élysées. The flag in the background is the line of Flanders. And we've seen some good rides by the Belgians this time around.
Some great sprinters in the main field right now as they just try to hold off the last-minute return of the field, which is being led by Team Telecom and the Lampre-Dakin team from Italy. Lampre-Dakin had the win on the Champs-Élysées last year with Jans Verrada causing a huge surprise to everybody. Pedro Herrillo, Phil, we've hardly seen him since Avranches, where he nearly took the stage victory, only just overtaken in the last moments there.
Did you hear that? There's the bell.
Well, there you go. This means just 1 lap to go for these riders, Phil. 7 kilometres left of the Tour de France of this year, and it's the last Tour de France for Laurent Jalabert. And what a remarkable career this man has had. Jalabert had 9 wins when he raced for the Toshiba team, 143 wins when he raced for Once, 12 wins when he rode for CSC Tiscali, and what a great way to go out of the Tour de France. He's been a magnificent bike rider, 14 years a professional, and watch out for this, Massimiliano Lelli on the attack. He made a last move like this when he won the US Pro Championships in Philadelphia.
About the last race he won, I think, but yesterday he had a wonderful time trial. He is now a serious contender in the overall for a great finish in the Tour de France.
This looks like Robbie Hunter, who's gone out of the front right now, and this is a man who's a good sprinter, but he knows if you want to win this stage, you're going to have to surprise the sprinters on the run out towards the finish. Laurent Brochard coming across to his wheel right now. A last-minute burst like this will really worry the sprinters. They're trying to keep it organised. It's hard to notice who's on the front, but I'm pretty sure it's Rolf Aldag right now. The South African, Robbie Hunter, in second position here, doesn't want to wait for the sprint. You know what, Robbie Hunter is a brilliant sprinter in his own right now, but he's trying to fox the sprinters by going out early. Brochard, former world champion, look at the bands on his sleeve there right now. 2 men with an advantage, Phil, of not much more than 6 seconds.
Well, you've got to take your hat off to Robbie Hunter. He is finishing the Tour de France this time around. He crashed out last time. It is now a great result for him anyway. He will come home and finish it in the Tour. Big effort now. Former world road race champion and a stage winner in the Tour, Ludenvielle. And that is Brochard. But look at this man. This is a Fassa Bortola rider, and I'm not sure whether it's not Ivan Basso. No, it's not Ivan. It's the white jersey, but not the white jersey of the leader.
Sergei Ivanov, he's won a stage in the Tour de France before, a very fast one. He's covered very rapidly there by a man from Lampre who's come across. The sprinters right now are fading. This is such a difficult thing to do, to control the main field on the far side. Danilo Hondo is going through there, the national champion of Germany. Team Telecom have to get themselves organised. Where is the green jersey? The yellow jersey is safely round. 5 teammates all around him. Moving forward right now, we've got Lampre on the front. This is a brilliant move for these guys. This again is Raimundas Rumsas looking for the gap. I cannot believe it. This man will not lay down arms. He wants second place if he can.
Well, there's no way he'll get it now. This will now go down in the list of cheeky moves because he's not going to get a minute in the last 6K of riding. But where is the green jersey? He sat right in the back pocket of Eric Zabel as he turned under the shadow of the Arc de Triomphe. So this is still the twice Russian champion, Sergei Ivanov, having another little turn of speed. Rumsas is becoming the first Lithuanian cyclist to go on the podium in any Tour de France in 89 editions of the event. There is Stuart O'Grady now. His hat gone, his balding pate. He's not really, just had his hair cut so low down on the left of our picture.
Another man riding his last Tour de France on the front, Abraham Olano, former world road race and time trial champion. Axel Merckx is in there as well, the former Belgian national champion. But this is a very naughty little move by Raimundas Rumsas. He has the cheek to go off the front on the last day. He's third place in the overall standings. The only time that the podium winners have actually gone out on the attack was when Bernard Hinault did it with Joop Zoetemelk. Well, they attacked 50 kilometres before the end. This is brilliant.
This has to be why Lamprey rode hard at the front, because he said, get me to the last lap and I'm going. Now there's a 12-second win bonus at the finish. There's also the time gap between the riders, but it's all too late. There's no way this man can get a minute. Look at the speed of the race.
I don't think it's going to happen, but what a show of aggression as he comes off the front. The sprinters must get it back together right now as we go through. There's another move coming off the front. It looks like the Cofidis rider Cédric Vasseur going clear across the Place de la Concorde for the last time. We're now looking at around about 3.5 kilometres to the finish. The whole of the field that will be together, I would say, Phil, when we come back.
Well, this is fantastic riding as we now head into the final sprint of this year's Tour de France. It is going to be a desperate finish as well, because keep your eye on the green jersey and his location. He has got not much on his side, just a 3-point lead. We're looking here at the Frenchman, Cédric Vasseur, who's now fallen into second place, as we've got another power launch here by Alessio, a team that hasn't had a lot of success. Hinted at it with Laurent Dufaux, but then Dufaux left the race. I think this is Bastier again.
He looks very much like him. He's a strong bike rider. Don't give him 15 or 20 metres over the main field, because you've got to pull it all back together. Team Telecom have disappeared off the front. It's the French team, Française des Jeux, right now. They've got an excellent sprinter, Baden Cook, an Australian. There's another Australian in the green jersey moving across there right now. That is Robbie McEwen. McEwen will be looking for the wheel of Eric Zabel. He's looked for the wheel of Eric Zabel since the very first sprints of this year's Tour de France, and he's right on it for the moment. Not far away, another Aussie, Stuart O'Grady, looking for the win as well.
It's been a great year for the 4 Australians. Every one of them distinguished themselves. Bradley McGee winning in Avranches, and that was a wonderful occasion. Injured in his crash on the Col de Soulor, and now just wants to say he has finished the Tour de France as well. He's continued in pain for nearly 2 weeks. Bastier still hanging on here to try and turn this into a magical tour for him as well. But I don't know whether the Slovenian now can do much about this, because the field is flying. There's the face of the man. There's nothing more left in those legs now, only pain. He's got to hang on for about 1 kilometre and a bit. The field are breathing down his neck. He's just 1 kilometre from the line, and here comes the charge.
He won't do it. This is the moment which was just a little bit too far. 1 kilometre too far for Havastia. He won't even finish in the top 50. They're all over the road right now, Phil. You can see inside the last kilometre right now, there are pink jerseys at the front. The team of Eric Zabel trying to get it launched. He knows he's got to try and get across the line in front of Robbie McEwen if he's going to make it 7 in a row. Rolf Aldag is on the front right now. There is Danilo Hondo. Cool as you like, Eric Zabel is there.
Lance Armstrong has won the Tour de France under the rules. You cannot lose in the last kilometre, whatever happens. So let's watch the front now as Daniel Hondo brings on to the top Champs-Élysées now. The 2 men fight in the green. Watch for the boy in pink off to the right, and watch also for the whereabouts of the green jersey, because in fact it's out of it. Robbie McEwen has won the green jersey. Is he going to win the stage? He's taking on Baden Cook, but on the line, Robbie McEwen has gone out. The best result you could possibly hope for. He's won this stage before, but now, just as Lance Armstrong yesterday wanted to win the time trial in yellow, and there he is. Robbie McEwen has taken the green jersey in the finest possible manner, and I think he's crying.
The only way to do it, the only way he could do it. Eric Zabel lost his wheel coming into that final corner. Zabel was under serious pressure. That he knew that he had to get across the line in first place. Zabel is disappearing. He won't even make the top 10 today. The big challenge coming from Cook on the outside. But look at the face of Robbie McEwen, Phil. Absolutely unbelievable. This proves that he is the top sprinter of this year's Tour, and he's very, very worthy of the green jersey at the end of the day.
Robbie, amazing. You did it. You won the green jersey. How are you feeling?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, to top it off with a stage win, it's been a really nervous race, and I haven't slept well the last days, obviously. and I've been able to top it off with that. And at this stage, I'm still more relieved than happy.